The Stream Deck is super practical for streaming, but did you know it's also one of the most underrated tools for sim racing? In my rig, I have a Stream Deck V1, but you can use it on all Stream Decks, especially on the XL where you have more buttons and more space for your functions. The first thing we're going to need is a plugin called Super Macro. And this plugin will allow you to make your own macros more than just the hotkeys or the macro function, multi-action function that is available here, as it will allow for long presses and to do other things with our buttons as well. Even though this video is about the Stream Deck, you can actually use this for other button boxes, or even if you bought some keypads from Amazon and you can do macros on that. This is just a bunch of ideas that I have that can be practical. And I'm also going to use this in Assetto Corsa Competizione. But of course, this can be used in iRacing, in Automobilista, Assetto Corsa, Race Room, or whatever to make your life a little bit easier. I'll be using this in Assetto Corsa Competizione, but of course it will be usable in iRacing. It doesn't really matter, the same as long as it is on the PC. A few of the functions that you would like to have on the Stream Deck are functions that can be bulky to have on the steering wheel, and they aren't really as a priority as other systems, or multi-functions. For example, something to have on the Stream Deck that might not be as useful to have on the steering wheel will be, for example, the left indicator or the right indicator. BMW drivers, pay attention to this one. But the interesting thing about this is that you can create macros with multi-function with just one button and can take away from 3 buttons on the steering wheel. So starting at the most basic things that I don't want to have on my steering wheel would be the left and right indicators. Very simple to use. And by the way, I'm using lovely Simracing racing icons. You just download it through the same place you download the macro. And to create something like a left or right indicator is super simple. You just go to a hotkey, search for hotkey, you drag it, you assign the hotkey. In this case, for the left indicator, it would be an alt left, exactly this. And then if you want, you can just change the icon to make it easier, more visual for you. And if I go inside the car, if I press the left indicator will be on. Press it again, it will turn off. Right indicator, the same thing. Left indicator, same thing. It's basically just a button press to activate it and deactivate it. Next one, we have multi-functions. Basically the reason why I'm doing this, because it allows you to have multiple functions with just one button and then clear up a bunch of clutter from your steering wheel. In this case, we're going to start with the simplest one. In this specific case, which will be the rain systems that I'm going to activate whenever it rains. So what I have activated here is something that you'll need whenever it rains in Assetto Corsa, which will be activating a rain light, a headlight, and also very useful to activate the wipers because you need to clean the rain in front of you. So instead of having each specific button assigned on your steering wheel or going through the multifunction display, you can just press one button to do 3 different things. If I press the rain button, 3 things happen at the same time. As you can see, we have the rain light, the headlights, and the wipers are on. If I press it again, everything turns off. We have the car out of rain mode. The last example is something a little more complicated, and it's the reason why we needed the Super Macro plugin, which will be turning on and off the car. So in Assetto Corsa Competizione, to turn on the car, it's quite simple, but it can be time consuming, especially with multiple buttons. It is turning the ignition on and then leaving the button for starter pressed for half a second to a second. So that's basically 2 buttons, and you do need to leave your button pressed for the starter. The reason why we needed Super Macro is because Stream Deck on its software, it doesn't allow for long presses, and we need a long press to make the car turn on. Going towards the system, as you can see, it is super simple. It's essentially just a hotkey for the ignition, in this case Shift I, and then for the Super Macro, we have a long press macro for the keystroke S. S is essentially the starter, and we need a long key press time of about a second, 1000 milliseconds. It's probably needed lower, but it will be fast enough, and this is really fast to turn on the car. Inside the car, we turn the car on, one button, the car is on automatically. If we want to turn it off, exactly the same thing. There is really no messing about with leaving the car on and off ignition. In this case, it could be useful to have the starter, just a starter if you were doing multiplayer racing and you just need to long press the starter, but this will work pretty much the same. Now, there might be a disadvantage here, especially if you're in competitive multiplayer and you need to test this. If it's more practical for you to have a button for the starter itself, or if this would be fast enough as it is with the starter, especially when you're on endurance multiplayer and you need to do a pit box. Sometimes there's that little gap of 2 seconds where you can press the starter on, or you can leave the car started, and then you just zoom out of the track. Probably you can do the same thing with this, but for general multiplayer and low fuel motorsports, this is more than enough. And these are just a few examples. If you have more real estate with a Stream Deck XL, I'm pretty sure you'll find much more. You can do multifunction display and have your navigation through there instead of your steering wheel. There will be plenty to do. You can do your own macros the way you want them. And speaking of that, let us know in the comments below what type of macros do you use, what type of ideas, or what would you use this Stream Deck for in sim racing. I would like to thank all the channel members and Twitch subscribers for supporting the channel. If you want to support the channel, become a member or a Twitch subscriber. And also check out this video about the priorities to take when upgrading sim racing equipment.